Diego Sanchez, president of Housing Wire, and this is 10-Minute Talks. My guest today is Amanda Orson, who is the founder and CEO of Galleon. And we're going to talk a lot more about Galleon during this conversation. But Amanda, welcome to 10-Minute Talks.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's so great to have you on. Before we dive in to your new company or newish company, could you give us a little bit of an introduction of yourself and your background?
I am definitely a tritely said serial entrepreneur. I've done a lot of different companies over time. I've principally been a bootstrapped entrepreneur until very recently. And by way of personal experience, I've been a real estate investor since about 2010.
Interesting. All right. So that's the angle that we're coming at Galleon from. So tell us about Galleon.
So Galleon is basically trying to figure out what would the future of real estate transactions that are actually conducted through software as an interface rather than human beings look like. We're trying to anticipate where that is going and trying to meet it there. Right now, we're a free and open marketplace at the very top of our funnel, if you can think of it that way, where you can come in and list your house for free. It takes about 2 minutes and indicate the price at which you would sell. We have about 16,000 listings on site right now. Then down funnel, we're about to release something called Navigator this week. Navigator is basically our transaction software. Right now, we're focused on the sell side to help sellers basically list and sell their own home.
So no real estate agents involved in the process. Homeowners can go direct to the site and list their property.
That is correct. And it's not to say that there are no agents involved. Like if you are selling and you are willing to compensate a buyer's agent, absolutely a buyer's agent could come and bring in. It's really just about giving the seller the control to be able to list and control their own listing.
So we've had the concept of for sale by owner forever in the U.S. housing market. And, typically it's anywhere from 3 to 6 or 7% of the transactions that happen for sale by owner. How do you think you can change that dynamic so that a more meaningful percentage of home sales in the U.S. are by the owner?
I think it's already changing. That's the short answer. The long answer is, I think that right now we kind of have a perfect storm. We have a lockup in the industry. I don't think that's new news to anybody on this podcast. I think that there are a lot of people that are now brand aware of the fact that this commission is very expensive and the price has just gone through the roof relative to all of the other things that you might pay a transaction fee for. If you were to analogize it to travel, or you were now to analogize it to securities or anything else you might buy, the cost to actually transact because of technology have come down to zero in the case of securities, for example. So real estate is very dislocated from the rest of the technology trends over time. And I think that people are starting to wise up to that. I also think that there is going to be, not right now, but at some point, there will be the implications from the most recent Sitzer settlement agreement. And I do think that as buyers begin to actually absorb some of that fee in a market that is different than the one we're currently in, I'll acknowledge readily, I think that we'll see a little bit more open to new ways of doing things that save, $15,000, $30,000.
At least, right? I mean, depending on where you live. But, on the other hand, a lot of people who are selling homes are busy professionals, a lot of times 2-income households, not a ton of time to go through all the steps of, what it takes to list a home for sale and then go through that whole process with a buyer. How are you going to make that process easier so that it's not overly burdensome on a 2-income household, for example?
I would say by doing a lot of step-by-step walkthrough with just-in-time messaging. Basically, by using software as sort of the dashboard interface, we're just simplifying the UI. Think about how difficult it was to trade crypto prior to Coinbase. Same concept. How much more expensive and sort of fragmented it was to trade securities before Robinhood. It's the same thing we're doing. We're basically simplifying the UI and making sure that for any given transaction, you know exactly where you are in place, exactly who's got the ball in their court and what's next. And it's just simple software UI.
So that makes sense. But thinking about the real world aspect of it, where you have to do open houses and there's still way too much paper to sign throughout the whole process. How do you help out with the things that need to happen in real life, like an open house, for example?
So there's calendar coordination here. And I should say the big difference, I think, between what we've built and anything that's existed before is that we are actually doing identity verification, or for the people that are from a fintech background, KYC. That I think is a step change more than what you're getting from any of the other portals right now, to actually verify that that buyer is who they purport to be based on all the other criteria that we've seen, and the seller is the person on the deed. It gives people a level of assurance and trust that they might not otherwise have had. But beyond that, it's actually about having sort of a marketplace of marketplaces under the hood. And we're getting very deep into making sure that we understand who the local professionals are in any given market across all of the segments that are going to matter to a seller. So think real estate photography, property inspection, mortgage loan officers in a given geo, title, an escrow, or real estate attorneys, depending on the geography. That's what's actually under the hood. In the same way, if you've used Airbnb as a host, you know that under the hood, it's basically a marketplace of marketplaces. But what the customer sees is just a clean UI.
And will that marketplace include ratings of those different providers? So, if you're a seller, you can go with a really highly rated local, whatever to, clean up the house for your next open house, or whatever it is, whatever service you need, you can go with someone who's trusted and highly rated.
Yes, definitely in the future. We're not there yet. We're brand new. But yes, that is exactly where we're going. We want to try and be sort of a high trust, high authority platform, and to, remove the opacity. None of this stuff is new. We've all done lots of parts of this transaction in our day-to-day lives all the time. And I would say, 70-ish% of the US currently does their taxes annually enabled by software. And taxes are it's actually a very comparable process in that it's highly specific, it's highly personalized. There's a lot of nuance and a lot of layers of complication that can happen based on you and your job and your geography and all of that. So it's actually pretty translatable.
And is that where Galleon potentially makes its money, is in that marketplace of providers?
Yeah, it could be. Right now, I think that is probably the thing that we most need to stay in touch with the Trump administration and its direction for the CFPB and RESPA, because there's certainly a RESPA implication there. I don't know where that's going. I do know that we all feel that there might be a change afoot, so we're going to monitor that closely. But simply, the marketplace is free. Navigator is a software license fee. Right now, it's $8.99 up front, but I think we're going to move that to post-pay so that we can get the maximum number of people into the system and using it.
So as a seller right now on your platform, is that potentially the fee that I'm going to pay, the fee for the Navigator functionality?
Yep, it's Navigator, and Navigator comes with personalized signage and professional photography.
Got it. And right now I can list for free.
Yep.
And then if I want to take advantage of those services, I would pay that fee.
Correct. And then obviously all of the transaction software on the other side.
So you've got like a little bit of a two-sided problem here that you have to solve with the business. One is the B2C approach to get people to list their homes, and then you're going to need providers to come into this marketplace. How are you thinking about who your customer is, and how are you prioritizing the B2C approach versus the B2B approach for the marketplace?
It's a good question. I would say it's by trying to gracefully say that this is changing underfoot right now in a way that's not offensive. Like I think that we need to be very careful to say that there's not a future where there are not real estate agents. I think that there is a future, though, where there are fewer and they become more professional. So the average real estate agent who does like 1.8 deals a year, that's probably the person that's going to be displaced, or probably the person for whom you would actually do a better job through software than the person that does 1.8 deals a year. The highly professional people, if anything, the existence of a Galleon and a Navigator in market actually makes them more valuable, because you should get a bespoke service for a premium price. Like that's the expectation that you would have as a consumer of literally any other thing. On the consumer side, we actually have more demand than we have supply of buyers. Like we have more people that would list right now. And I think that if we actually opened our doors up to accepting real estate agent leads, we would never need to raise money again.
And you mentioned your background as a real estate investor as well. Are a lot of the first clients on the platform folks who are doing fix and flips or other types of real estate investment?
Yeah, I would say that right now they're high agency people with some amount of background. Now, it could be that they're investors, they could be short-term rental people, they could be people that simply have moved a lot. And there are a lot of different reasons why you might be a person that has moved a lot. Definitely high agency. And I would say it's a combination of either it feels like they could do this for themselves and wants to save the money, like they're cash motivated, or they had a bad experience in the past and they're looking for an alternative.
Amanda, it's a really interesting platform. Thank you so much for joining me on 10 Minute Talks today.
Thank you for having me again.